Hi, and welcome to another edition of Comics and Pop. Please hit subscribe, and here we go. I am one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen. I am being joined, as always, by Troy Cannon and Carlos Hidaraga. And today we have a special episode focusing on the upcoming DC movie slate. All of our viewers wrote in and say, "Hey, why don't you guys discuss?" All of our three viewers that why don't you guys discuss DC movies? And that is what we are going to do today. First off, how you guys doing?
Good, man. Good. Happy to be here. Let's talk DC.
Well, there's only one. You know what's funny? We have a whole bunch of DC movies coming up, and unlike Marvel is like one after the other. DC only has like one major thing coming this year, and that's Suicide Squad in August. I mean, the thing that before we go into you guys, the thing that I'm taking from the Suicide Squad, and the trailers do look good so far, what I've seen, that we've all spoken about it before, that DC doesn't give the same excitement. Their movies, at least I think to the most people, that they have the hardcore DC fans, but overall they don't have the same level of excitement. So it took a guy that is known for his Marvel movies to come in and save DC. You have James Gunn doing from Guardians of the Galaxy is going to do the Suicide Squad.
Well, you know what? They also have the Batman, the Patterson movie coming out, right? To me, DC always when they feel like they're falling behind Marvel, which I mean they really shouldn't feel that way because there's no competition to me in my eyes, obviously. But they always go to Batman. Batman's like the go-to character that they always bust out, right? Now they're gonna do it with Patterson, so who knows how that's gonna look, right? But I mean, to talk Suicide Squad, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Suicide Squad to me was maybe kind of like an answer to Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of. It was like kind of like right. It was a little odd, and
they literally stole the director, not stole, but
right. They stole the director, and they tried to make it
one now, yeah.
Right. They tried to make it, kind of like funny and quirky, and but it just, I watched Suicide Squad. To me, it was just okay, but a little bit less than just okay. I mean, the main draw was obviously Will Smith, right? And what's her name? And what's the actress's name? The one who plays
Margot Robbie.
Margot Robbie. Yes, those were the two big draws, and obviously, Will Smith is gone now. So they brought in, I guess they brought in the guy to replace him, which is going to be Bloodsport, but he's not playing the same character. He's playing another character, Bloodsport, which is kind of like if you read the comics, he's a pretty well-known guy. And being that this is Comics and Pop, and we do show first appearances on here and stuff, this is the first appearance of Bloodsport right here. We'll break it out for you guys. But I don't know, man. They brought a lot of people into the second movie, man. I mean, they got John Cena. They even have some of the characters that they brought in. They're already planning spin-offs for them. Like John Cena's character is going to be doing a spin-off. So they're expecting a lot from this movie, So I mean, there's a lot of they have a lot invested in this movie, man. This movie better really do good, because if not, I mean, I don't really know which way they're gonna go, man. And just they just gotta hope that they can put out a Batman movie every couple of years to save the franchise. Because if not, I mean, I don't know, man. I'll let one of you guys speak, and then I'll have some more DC hate.
I've got two things about DC. One is about DC itself, and one is about what DC is doing. The thing that DC itself, I've never, in my hundreds of years of collecting books and stuff, I've never thought that DC was a good match for Marvel. I thought Marvel had better stories. DC, if you look at Marvel and you look at DC and you say, what's their major stories? Batman's got some. Like you say, Batman's got them. Superman's got a few. But Wonder Woman, not really. Anybody else? Not really. It's a collective thing sometimes when they get a big, like a crisis or whatever. It's a big thing when all of them are together. But then it becomes, crazy. It's a comic book. But you have to suspend belief to the point of idiocy when you read their books. I mean, Superman saved the universe one time by picking up a book that had all the knowledge in all the universe, and he sang. He used his super singing ability. I'm like, Superman doesn't have super singing ability? Where'd they get that from? And he saved the universe like that. Superman once, in this book right there, The Crisis, he punched a hole through dimensions. I'm like, what did he hit? He punched a hole through the dimension? What did he hit? You know, it was just too much. Then John Cena, as far as DC goes. The Rock was in Fast 9. And then Cena joined the Fast 5 thing. He's on his heels. The Rock is like, you know what? I'm going to do a Black Adam. Since, what was it, 2008? I'm going to do Black Adam. So now Cena's in there, but Cena's got to jump on him because Cena's in this movie. He's actually in a movie, and he's already got his spinoff coming. Personally, no spoilers for our fans, but personally, I think Margot Robbie is too big of an iconic person for them to get rid of. John Cena's already got, you know, they're already saying, hey man, you're going to get another movie. Unless it's a prequel, I think those are the only two that's going to survive. I think they're going to slaughter everybody else because the Suicide Squad didn't kill enough people. You know, they get, every time they do a Suicide Squad comic book, somebody unexpected gets shot in the back of the head. And then 2 months later, they're back in their own book and it didn't, you know, it's retcon. It didn't really happen, or it was a clone or something like that. DC takes a lot of shorts with their stories. So now that it's time to make a movie and put it in front of everybody, because we'll read the book. The three of us will read the book and other people will read the book and we'll say, oh man, this is great. What happened? Superman came back from the dead. Oh, okay. All right. That could happen.
You knew that was coming. Yes.
You know it was coming. He's too big a guy.
Right. Yes.
So when they do that, and then Marvel came out and they said, we're going to have movies, man. And these are going to be real serious movies. They're like, look, we've got Thor. And then DC was like, well, we don't have a Thor. Hey, let's change Wonder Woman from being made from clay and Zeus breathed life into her to actually, she's the daughter of Zeus and she's going to take over the place of the war god. She's going to kill, you know, she's going to kill Ares and become the war god. Now we've got a god. And they're like, okay, well, we got a zany kid that tells jokes in Spider-Man. They're like, oh, let's take the Flash and reduce his age so he's younger than everybody else. We'll make him zany and funny. We'll follow Marvel. And they're like, okay, well, you know, that Black Panther movie sure did good. And they're like, wow, they got a black guy. He was good. Hey, let's call Cyborg up to the big leagues. And now we've got one. He'll be our Iron Man and our black guy. And I'm thinking, come on, DC, at least, you know, do some of your own stories. They've got good stories. They don't have a lot of them, but they've got some. And they could run with them, but they spend too much time.
That's one of the things to me is that DC and Marvel are doing the same thing. I mean, logically, they're doing the same thing. You know, they're the comic book company putting out movies. DC's been around much longer. It's always surprising to me how bad DC is at this, how bad they are putting things together. It's like in their mind, they've set a decision. They made a decision that they want to be different from the Marvel movies. They want to be much more serious. And that's why I think the DC movies have been changing, because Marvel puts a lot more warmth and humor into their movies than DC has done so far. And you see like a conscious effort on DC's part in the last few movies to make it change the styles, change the tone of their movies. And just what you said before with like where these Superman powers came from, like where'd they come from all of a sudden? It just reminds me of the Star Wars, like the last couple of Star Wars movies. All of a sudden Leia, you know, could breathe in outer space and all that stuff. So like, you know, we're just going to throw new powers in there. But yeah, but I am excited for the Suicide Squad just because of, you know, Gunn's involvement. And I felt the same way as you guys. The first one was like, okay, I was excited for it, but it was just okay. I enjoyed it just watching it because I enjoy comic book movies, but it wasn't anything great. This one I am kind of like excited about. And is Cena's spinoff, is that a movie or is it a TV series? I thought it was going to be a TV series. No,
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. So a couple of points. Usually I I space out when you guys are talking, and I just
Focus.
pretty much pay attention to when I'm talking. But I did hear Troy mention something about Cyborg, so we'll break out a little first appearance of Cyborg right here, because it is comics and pop. This book is actually crazy right now, because it actually blew up as well, the first appearance of Cyborg. But to go back to, I think the problem with DC has always been the believability of the characters. Like Batman's always been so popular because Batman technically could actually happen. He doesn't have any superpowers. He's just a rich guy who pretty much has a utility belt and and was able to train and become a great fighter and fight crime. Right? He's a vigilante. So to me,
it's if Elon Musk would just go ahead and start fighting crime.
Exactly. Well, we don't know that he's not.
That's true.
That's true.
So he could be, exactly.
Right. He could be out there hitting people in the head with batarangs.
Right. So to me, like the thing with Superman is that Superman in the comic books he was always so unbeatable, right? There's always
that was DC's problem, right?
Right, that was DC's problems. Like you can't defeat Superman. I mean, technically, Superman is the most powerful being in the universe, and even the whole thing about the whole premise behind the Justice League was that Darkseid was going to come and they were all going to come attack now because Superman wasn't alive anymore. When the Superman was alive, they wouldn't dare come, because they knew that Superman would kill them, right? So the fact that you have a hero that can't be killed or destroyed. I mean, obviously, unless you have a little green rock, you can, God forbid, you put that green rock in anywhere, you're in trouble. But I mean, to me, it was always the believability of the character. Same thing with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, flew around in an invisible plane. And I don't know, Green Lantern, had a ring. And it was just, I mean, as a comic book fan, I understand and I accept it and I enjoy it. But if you're not a comic book fan, people are very skeptic, and they're, the believability of the whole thing is kind of like, hard to fathom. And if you don't have good writers to be able to actually, to open up the stories, it's just, that to me has always been the issue.
Well, that's why I like Green Lantern, is because anybody could be Green Lantern.
I love Green Lantern.
But I'm saying that you just got to get the ring. Wonder Woman, Superman is just like, right, is you can't comprehend. Like, I can't be. I'm not coming from another world. I'm not, a child of the gods, unless my parents didn't tell me something. But anyone, I just find that super powered ring, I could go fight crime.
Sure. With Wonder Woman, they never, something that has vexed me since I was a kid was they never talk about her superhuman vision, because she's the only person who can actually see that freaking plane. So she's got to have, she must be able to see things that are invisible, because even when she's sitting in the pilot seat, she can see all the controls and stuff. They're invisible. She should be looking at her feet. But in her mind, she can see the controls and she's pulling things and doing stuff. She can see that plane.
Well, I'm surprised she's never got into a plane accident over there, because the other planes can't see her.
But the thing is, like when they draw the cartoons, you can see her.
Right.
Like you see her sitting down and flying around. You just don't see her plane. Actually, in the movie, they did it kind of weird in the Wonder Woman 1984. I don't remember if they did it, that if she made it disappear, or is that what it was? That she kind of like made the plane disappear with her powers or something, or is that how it was?
That movie was so dreadful that it was online. Everyone was complaining. The first Wonder Woman was really good. They did a great job with that, and then the second one was just so cartoonish. And like again, I enjoyed it just because I enjoy comic book movies, but it was just so silly. Some of it.
Wonder Woman in 1984. I mean, obviously, it was nowhere near as good as I actually thought the first Wonder Woman movie was probably one of the better DC movies that they've made.
Agreed.
I thought it was really good. It kind of like I kind of compared it a little bit to the Captain America origin story, the first Captain America movie that they made from the current series. I thought it kind of compared to that because it brought you back to the world wars and stuff like that, right? So I thought it was really well made. I don't know. Then the second one was kind of like a little bit of a cheese effect to it, I guess. It was a little cheesy. They could have, they could have done so much better with it. So yeah, I definitely agree on that.
I think they dropped the ball with that second Wonder Woman because they couldn't identify a Wonder Woman villain. You know, somebody probably told somebody in $1,000 suit, "Hey man, Wonder Woman's her villain is Cheetah." And they're like, "Okay, well, who's that?" And then they probably said, "Well, there's 3 versions, man. Let me tell you about it." And they're like, "No, you know what? That's enough. It's Cheetah. We'll use that. We'll just take all of the versions. We'll kind of twist them together. That'll be good." And then they thought about it and they said, "Well, we don't have the money for the special effects. So we're going to make the screen really dark so people can't really see it. We better stick somebody else in there. Who else you got?" And they're like, "Well, there's this guy, Max Lord. Yeah. We'll use him. He's like Lex Luthor for Wonder Woman." And they're like, "No, he's not." And they're like, "That's what we're going to do. Lex Luthor for Wonder Woman, except he sucks." Yeah, people will love that. Let's make a suck version of Lex Luthor, give him the Wonder Woman, and then we'll make Cheetah, who I don't want to hear about. Don't tell me about her. And we'll make the screen black so no one can actually see it. People will buy that. We'll force feed it to them. They'll love it. That's what I saw when I was looking at it. I was like, what the heck?
So Troy was saying something to me earlier about, DC. Why did you say it again about, DC having the earlier good movies?
Yeah, DC, their movies, especially like their comic books, they started out, there was no, their competition when they became a comic book company, they were a publishing company, they became a comic book company. There were the sci-fi comics and the cowboy and Indian comics and the mystery comics. And they said, "Hey, what about superheroes?" And they introduced superheroes and they beat the crap out of the other ones. They were like Ivan Drago. They were big, made of steel. And they looked at the other comic books and they were like, "I must break you." And that's how it was for a long time. When they started getting a little bit of competition, like specifically like Marvel, at that point, they were a fat dude that was well past his prime, sitting in a chair with his shirt being held up by his gut. He had a beer in one hand and a bag of Zag nuts in the other. And Marvel was like, came up there looking like a young Apollo Creed. So they stood up and they didn't really want to fight. They couldn't really fight. They tried to fight with moves that they used back in their glory days. And Marvel was just like, "You know what? We're young, we're strong, we're going to beat you." And that's what they've been doing, like in the box office. They've been beating them. And then DC is like, "Okay, all right, guys, come on, we got to get back in shape. Come on, guys. You remember when we used to use that right cross?" And they're like, "Nah, it doesn't work anymore." And they're like, "Okay, Batman." And that's their thing. Just like you said earlier, that's their thing. That's their go-to. Everything's breaking down. Batman. But Batman's not going to hold their whole company
The whole
up.
tent up. Well, it's a good point because, like in the 70s and 80s, you had those Christopher Reeve movies, the Supermans. Then you got into the Michael Keaton Batman movies in the 80s, 90s, early 90s. Marvel had nothing really. I mean, they had Blade come out maybe at that close to that time, but they really had nothing that compared to DC. I mean, it's amazing what's happened to them since then. That Marvel's just catapulted them. Marvel's just gone way over whatever DC's doing, but because DC had that feel to themselves for so long, I don't know where it went wrong, for them afterwards.
Marvel,
I think to me personally, guys, it's the characters, man, the characters and the writers. Like you said originally, there was no competition. But if you think about it, it was just Superman, Batman. Movie wise, it was just Superman, Batman, right? And then they had obviously Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Aquaman, and stuff. So the everyone knew who those characters were. Where the Marvel characters are fairly newer compared to the DC characters, and a lot of the characters that Marvel has now that have become big major characters are kind of like were introduced pretty much later in the Marvel universe, where like the major characters like Wolverine wasn't original to the X-Men. He was introduced later on in Hulk 81 as a mutant. He came in. You have Leo who created Deadpool, right? Deadpool he came out in the 90s. Look how the characters took off. So Marvel had all these young writers and came with ideas and all these different characters that people could relate to better. And I think that's what kept Marvel, catapulted Marvel above DC, where DC's, New York, like they always went back to their, their bread and butter, their Supermans, their Batmans, their original characters. And, they don't really have any newer characters that people can relate to the way Marvel does.
It's not just that though. It's just also we're talking about the tone of the movie. Like those Christopher Reeve Superman movies were much more like what Marvel does today. It's like they had it was fun. You had you had the villains, but it still had a lot of fun in it. Superman movies are not like that anymore. Superman movies are like now dark, and Superman's not that character. Same thing with Michael Keaton's Batman.
Right, but the reason that that DC does that, to me, I blame a Marvel writer for that, and that's Frank Miller, because DC wasn't dark until Frank Miller came over and did the Dark Knight, and turned Batman into this dark, brooding character, and that's what they decided to go with, right? And they're kind of like, to me, it's DC. To me, what DC was doing in the 80s and 90s, they were taking a lot of the Marvel writers and bringing them over to try to, revive and refresh their books, right? They brought a lot of the, like John Byrne came over and did Superman as well. Frank Miller came over, so a lot of these guys were coming over from Marvel over to DC to, because DC wanted to beat Marvel, right? Because Marvel's actually kind of like taking over. So these writers, they didn't come over and create new characters. They tried to take the current characters and kind of like, refresh them and stuff. And like I said, there's only so much you can do. I mean, like you said, Superman is, he's like a god, and, and he's not a dark character. So changing him to that, a lot of people are kind of like against it, right? Batman, you can understand. Like, I thought Batman was great. The Dark Knight, to me, the best DC movies were those 3 Dark Knight movies that they made with Christian Bale. Those are the 3 best DC movies that I've ever seen in my life. So I think that was a good idea, but you can't do that with the whole universe. You have to look at the characters and take them character per character and see if you can do that. So, if you try to do that with the whole DC universe, it doesn't apply to all the characters.
Yeah, it's a puzzle piece. It's like, so when you were saying the old Marvel movies, they had the Doctor Strange one, the original Doctor Strange one, and it was made for TV. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And then they had like the 2 different versions of Captain America, and those were both horrible. They had that failed Fantastic Four one. Marvel they couldn't pick the ball up, but once they got it, like you said, they got the formula. I think I agree with the Christopher Reeve Superman. They're like, man, those were fun. People love those. It was iconic. People love it. It stuck to the character. It's the source material. Comic books have been around forever. So if you just stick with people have been reading them, stick with the source material. But DC's doesn't have that kind of source material. They got the Trinity. They even call them the Trinity: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. When they make another team, they're like, okay, is it based on Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman? And they're like, none of them. They're like, we don't want that. Even like Teen Titans, probably the next biggest team was their substitute, their sidekicks. They made that team up. So they had to be part of the Justice League / Trinity in order to make their own book. But in Marvel, you've got, I could name 10 different teams. Right now, Marvel's got a lot more stories, and they're giving time to other people. Okay, I go off the rails a little bit every once in a while, but this is only take like a minute. It's like, because I'm a wrestling fan too. And back when they used to have, they called them the Monday Night Wars, you had WWE and you had WCW. And what they were doing was WWE was like, okay, all right, we're going to go with The Rock, with Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels and Triple H, and that's it. And then WCW was like, well, we got to introduce some new guys. We got to bring fresh blood. If we want people to watch, we need a Goldberg. We need Chris Jericho. We need Rey Mysterio. We need all of these guys that we're going to give a little bit of time to and build a story here, build a story here, build a story here. It means that there's more reason to watch. You go to the other channel, WWE, WWE's like, look, we've been around forever. We don't have to try that hard. The Rock is going to go out there. He's going to hit somebody with a move. He's going to say his catchy phrase, and then Stone Cold will hit somebody with a move. He'll say his catchy phrase, go to commercial. That's it. Put it in the can. We're good. They weren't building a story. That makes me think about WCW. I mean, DC. I'm back in wrestling. DC, because DC, they're not trying to build stories. They're just saying, you know what? People know Superman. Write a Superman story. Doesn't matter what it is. This week, he'll push a planet. Next week, he'll punch a robber in the face. And we won't say why he can hit a robber and he just doesn't explode in the dust. But when last week, he just pushed a planet, we won't say. We'll just, matter of fact, have him tear his ass off his chest and throw it, and it'll be like some kind of wrap, and it'll wrap the people. The powers didn't make any sense. But when I went to Marvel, I was like, okay, they're looking at Batman. They're looking at Captain America. They're looking at Iron Man. They're looking at all these different guys, and they've got their own stories. And it was intriguing. It was interesting. It pulled me in. DC, they were like, look, Superman, Batman, we're going to force feed you. Eat this. And I'm like, I'm not that hungry. I'm not that hungry.
Well, even Superman, I mean, even in the comics, Superman was called like the Boy Scout. They always refer to him as the Boy Scout, as this do-gooder. And that's not the character in the movies now. They changed that character in the movies. But we should press on. We've only discussed the Suicide Squad. We have more. We have Batman coming up. We said Black Adam, Aquaman 2, The Flash, and Shazam, Fury of the Gods. So out of those, I mean, let's take the Batman one first. Let's go a little quick tidbit on each one of them. What do you think about Pattinson as Batman? I mean, what are you guys thinking of this?
So for me personally, like when it comes to DC, Batman's my favorite character out of the DC characters, right? Because the movie wise, comic book wise, it's the best stories. The whole Dark Knight thing is probably one of my Dark Knight stuff that Frank Miller wrote is probably one of my favorite storylines ever in the comics. They've changed Batman a lot. The one thing that I don't like about this is kind of like I don't like the fact that this Batman movie doesn't coincide with the current DC universe, right? So it's kind of like almost like a standalone, kind of like the Joker movie was right. So that's kind of like how they're going with this Batman. Like these characters really won't coincide with the current DC universe, what's going on. Like it's not, continuing from the Justice League and stuff like that. So this is like a kind of like its own standalone movie. Pattinson, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know much about him other than, he was the vampire kid, right? From Twilight in those movies, So I always looked at him as like, some skinny, brooding, millennial kid, right? I'm not thinking of him as Batman, right? But I mean, they're going with like a younger Batman. So I guess, it's kind of like Batman in his younger years, I guess. So,
Year two.
Yeah, year two. So I mean, I don't know, man. It looks good. I mean, from what I've seen, the little trailers that I've seen, it looks like it's going to be good, right? I mean, it looks cool and stuff. That scene when they show him beating the crap out of some guy and stuff, it looks pretty sick, right? So, I mean, I'm going in with an open mind because other than a few, I mean, they've made like 89 Batman movies, right? But only then probably Val Kilmer was the worst Batman that I've ever seen. And then
Kilmer worse than Clooney?
Him and Clooney. Yeah, him and Clooney were the two worst. All the other Batmans I've dealt with. To me, my personal favorite was Christian Bale. I thought what's his name? Affleck was a great Batman. Obviously Keaton. But I remember when the first Batman came out with Keaton, everyone was like Keaton, Michael Keaton.
Right, exactly.
The guy's like 5'7", was 150 pounds. How's this guy Batman? And he was fantastic. Yeah, and he was a great Batman. So I'm going in with an open mind in that, so maybe this kid, he'll do a good job. So I'm more worried about the actual storyline and that they do a good job. They're going, I think, with the Court of Owls, I believe, in this. And the Riddler and stuff. And so it's it's going to be interesting. I'm actually excited. Out of the DC slate that's coming out, that's probably the one I'm most excited about because I'm a Batman fan.
Right? What did you?
I think DC owes me a check, honestly, because even last week, I told you guys, I was like, I think they should start their whole universe over again, and it should start with Batman and not Batman with the throwing the boomerangs and stuff like that, the batarangs. I think they should reboot Batman the same way they rebooted 007. 007 used to push a button in the car and rockets would fly out, and he had the boot with the knife in it and the pen with the acid. And then Daniel Craig came and he's like, look, let's start with this. He's a physical guy and he beats the brakes off of people. And he didn't have any special, and it was great. Daniel Craig's first, 007 was great. They redid it, they calmed it down, they took a deep breath, and they backed up. I think they should have did the same thing with Batman. Though I said this like a decade ago, they should take Batman, slow him down, and remember, he's the world's greatest detective, man. He's a smart guy. Start off with that. Start off like in the beginning, where he's got a case like Zaz or somebody has been killing people and he's on the case to find him. He's a detective doing kind of like a Sherlock Holmes kind of a thing, and make it dark and kind of scary because, there's a murderer out there and he doesn't have like, the bulletproof armored suit, and he doesn't have the bat car and all that kind of stuff. He's basically a dude in a costume that's solving a crime. And I thought that was a good idea. And it looks like that's what they're doing with Patterson. They owe me a check because that was my idea. So now they're going to do it with Patterson, where he's doing more of the detective thing.
I think it's Pattinson, but both. But first of all, we got to do a James Bond episode one day, because I do agree. But I do love those earlier James Bond modes much more than Daniel Craig's, even though Daniel Craig's a bit more successful with the money wise. But I love those, jokey, James Bond things. But so you're on the Batman. That's when you want to see the most out of the others.
The one I want to see, the one I want to see the most probably is the Flash one, because Flashpoint. I think they're doing Flashpoint, and if they are, that could actually open up their universe. If they're doing Flashpoint, then they can say that everything they did before was Earth 12 or something like that, and they could reboot everything with the African American Superman. They could say that's another world. They do their Elseworlds. If they open up a Flashpoint, that should be the beginning. That could be the beginning of a brand new DC universe. They got so many options from there. I'm curious what they're going to do with that.
Keaton's Batman's supposed to be in Flashpoint.
Be in there too. Right. I did like when they first did talked about a Flash movie. I was kind of upset that they weren't going to use the one from the TV series, because I do enjoy the TV series. But this kid, like Ezra Miller, he was fun in it. He was like one of the few bright spots in that whole original Justice League thing, because he was funny. He gave it some light in that otherwise like really dark movie. So I am curious to see that one too. But I mean, I'm out of the remaining ones, I might be interested most in seeing Shazam, just because Shazam was not like the regular DC movies. Shazam was much more like a Marvel movie, in that it had all that fun in it too. Besides, the fight scenes, it did have a lot of elements of like heart and fun. So I am curious to see what they are going to do with that, if they're going to be able to follow that up well.
Yeah.
The only beef that I have for Shazam is how the first one ended. That you had, the villain was going to be the little,
right.
What's it called, Mr. Mind? Is it? I think.
Right. Mr. Mind,
the little slug and stuff. So if they bring him into Shazam 2 movie and the big villain's a little freaking slug, it's kind of like.
If they bring in Mr. Mind, Mr. Mind's bodyguard was Beckett. I can't remember how you say his name, but it's the word cabbie spelled backwards. And he's the big muscular guy with the cat. So if they bring him in there, he's as strong as Shazam. Maybe they'll have a guy besides Black Adam to fist fight with him, because Mr. Mind, he can't fight with anybody. So he's got that guy, Cabby.
But he's super smart, though. He's got,
he's super smart.
Super smart.
I actually enjoyed the Shazam movie. It wasn't too bad. It was fun. It was a fun movie.
So that's why I enjoyed it, because it was so much fun to me. It really was not like the typical DC movies like lately.
Right.
But we got to see. I mean, all right, let's quickly round out a little bit more. The Rock and Black Adam. I mean, to me, right now, he's earned it. Anything that The Rock is in, I'm interested in seeing right now. So it doesn't even matter what the movie is. I got to see The Rock in it right now. I think he's justified that. He's built up the goodwill with an audience. So that I don't even know too much about what it's going to be, but it looks like it's going to, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt right off the bat.
I actually looked that one up because I'm curious about that one too. I would have said that was my number one movie, but I want Flashpoint to reboot their universe. But other than that, it would be the one with The Rock. He's met me twice. He was very happy about that, but he met me twice.
Lucky for him, huh?
Why is this the first time I'm hearing this?
I met him when I was overseas. I'll show you after this. I'll show you the pictures.
You got to insert that in the podcast now. The pictures.
Put it in there.
Okay.
So I'm curious about that one because it's going to be. They're making him the anti-hero kind of a guy. He's a bad guy, but only because he thinks he's doing a good thing. And he's going to fight the Justice Society. He's going to fight them. When I was talking about them changing characters and stuff, Hawkman is African American now, so Hawkman is going to be in there. And what else are they changing? Something else big they're changing in that movie. I can't remember what it was. I was going to make a point, but they're doing that, and he's going to start off back 5,000 years ago, and the movie's sort of like Captain America. He's going to end up in today because he's essentially immortal. So I'm curious about that because I also want to know, is he going to fight? Are the Justice Society going to be old now? Because he's going to fight them and they're like old today. So it must be like, way back. And then he meets the Justice Society and then he ends up in today. I'm thinking that they might have a problem with that movie.
Well, I would like to see the Justice Society in a movie. Actually, that one I would like to see. And let's talk about quickly, like this last one, Aquaman 2. And the first one is another one. I thought that it was a little bit more fun. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was a little bit more fun. I think it did great at the box office. So they're getting the other one. There's been some controversy about the movie now with Amber Heard. They're against her right now. So I wanted to see what DC was going to do with that, whether they're going to bring her back. But I don't think that I've heard anything that she's not going to be in it. But all I know is I think that the movie just did great box office just because of the women going to see it alone, probably.
Yeah.
Right. So Aquaman, like for me, I enjoyed Aquaman. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Most of the people, the comic book people that I talked to, especially like the DC purists, they hate Jason Momoa as right, because he looks nothing like Aquaman. Aquaman is not a 250-pound Samoan, right? so most of the DC purists hate that. I mean, I could go either way. I like Jason Momoa, right? I love him from Game of Thrones. I thought he was awesome. So I don't mind him so much as Aquaman. And I thought the Aquaman movie was it was a little bit it was watchable, right? But it's one of those movies that I've actually watched it a couple of times because it's always on freaking TV now. So when it's on, I leave it on, and the more times that I watch it, the more I enjoy it and kind of like appreciate it. But Aquaman 2, I really haven't heard anything about it, to be honest with you. I haven't done much research on it or heard anything about it or what route they're going to take. If they're going to continue it with the whole DC universe. That's one thing. Like the DC doesn't really have like a plan written out. Like like Marvel has the next 5 years pretty much covered. They have everything written out exactly how everything is going to work out. Where DC doesn't really have that. They're like they don't know how they're going to go. So that kind of like makes it a little, what are they going to do? How are they going to, include like what storyline are they going to use? It's just, it's just so unorganized. And the fact that, most of the people now that are watching DC, that watch the DC movies, everyone's right now is the big thing is now was the Snyder cut that just came out a little while ago. And everyone wants, kind of like Snyder to take over the universe and continue it in that way. But then, that goes to kind of like what Jonathan was talking about, which is the whole dark DC universe, right? So, is that the route that they want to take, or, who knows what they want to do, man. But
And Aquaman was a little bit more fun too. Aquaman had some fun moments in it too.
it did, but if you think about it, the Snyder cut was more was a little different than the actual, like the first part when they the first few scenes of the movie when he goes out to meet Arthur Curry, whatever. It's not the same as the original movie that they put out. It was a little different, a little bit dark. Like they cut out some of the funny points in the Snyder cut. So I mean, I don't know, man. To me, the jury's still out on Aquaman. I like Jason Momoa, but I just want to know what they.
I will say just one thing on Jason Momoa, and I love Jason Momoa. I think he did a fun job in that role. That most heroes, when you look at them, you're supposed to say like, this is like the every man, or the every woman that could just, it could happen to anyone. You look at Jason Momoa, and you already know that guy's going to kick my ass. That's the only thing that you see here. You know not to mess with him already before you even start anything. Like, the others you can say like, oh, I'm going to take on this hero, not Jason Momoa, and even without the superpowers, So.
Right. But when you think of Aquaman, you don't think of like,
right.
He wasn't right. He was more, I don't know, Jason Momoa. Like I said, I liked it. So I mean, I just want to see how they're gonna take how the story is. It's more what I'm more interested in.
I think Jason Momoa should give up Aquaman, and he should practice a Russian accent, and then he should be Craven the Hunter in the Marvel universe.
That I could see. I could see that.
It would be awesome as Craven the Hunter.
That I could definitely see. That's one storyline that I would love Marvel to finally tackle in the Spider-Man movie. That to me, that was one of the best Spider-Man storylines. The Craven's last hunt.
Last hunt.
Yeah. That was incredible. But anyway, our producer is telling me that we are out of time, and so I hope you enjoyed this talking about the upcoming DC movie slate. And please follow us on social media. Here's the button below, and drop us your thoughts. Let us all hear your comments. What are you looking forward to with DC? And on behalf of Troy and Carlos, I'm Jonathan, and this is Comics and Pop. Thank you for watching. This one. So
how long was this?
I started it late. I'm saying I forgot to press it at the beginning, but we're at like half an hour now from when I did start. I started like around 10-15 minutes late. So let's see. I'm just